I told you that before tea became the national obsession, England and much of Europe was fueled by something much darker, richer, and far more exciting: coffee. You see, England wasn't always the land of refined tea parties and cucumber sandwiches. Back then, life was hard, unpredictable, and frankly, smelled pretty terrible. This was medieval Europe, also known as the Dark Ages, a time when innovation was as rare as decent Wi-Fi signal in a basement apartment, all while trying not to die from things like spoiled food or an overly ambitious rat population. But history has a funny way of sneaking up on you, like that one friend who always shows up uninvited. In the midst of all this doom and gloom, something new began to brew. Literally. The first Europeans to taste coffee couldn't have known the storm they were about to unleash. This drink, black as night and brimming with a strange energy, was unlike the weak ales and murky water they were used to. And let's face it, before caffeine, the only options for refreshment were beer, wine, or spirits, because drinking water was basically a fast track to an early grave. Medieval water supplies were so full of filth, diseases, and quite possibly a few floating corpses that taking a sip was basically playing Russian roulette with your intestines. Of course, the skeptics weren't convinced. If it's not fermented, is it even safe? They muttered, suspicious of anything that didn't make them drunk. But one by one, they took a sip. The first sip jolted the senses, and the second woke the mind. It was like someone had opened a window in a musty old room, letting in a breath of fresh air that stirred the soul, and probably made them realize just how gross that room smelled in the first place. Word spread faster than medieval gossip. In the great cities of Europe, Venice, Paris, London, coffee houses began to pop up. At first, they were just curiosities, places where merchants and travelers would stop in to try this exotic brew. But it didn't take long for them to become something more. These were not just places to drink coffee. They were places to think, to talk, and to debate. They became the antidote to the Dark Ages, the bright sparks that began to light up Europe's long night. They came to sip and stay. A rare thing in a time when most people's idea of leisure was limited to the local tavern. The drink's stimulating effects gave rise to stimulating conversations. Politics, science, philosophy, art. Nothing was off limits. You didn't need to be wealthy or well-connected to join in. You just needed to be willing to listen, to speak, and to think. The coffeehouse culture was a revolution in itself. It broke down barriers, encouraged debate, and fostered an environment where ideas could be exchanged freely. Here, people began to question the world around them, to challenge old beliefs, and to imagine new possibilities. It was in these spaces that the seeds of the Enlightenment were sown, where the minds that went on to go on and change the world first sharpened their arguments over steaming cups of coffee. Thinkers like Voltaire in Paris, Isaac Newton in London, and a host of others found their way to these coffee houses. They didn't just drink coffee, they absorbed it, used it as fuel for their intellectual fires. This was where the Renaissance began to morph into something greater, where the old world began to give way to the new. Coffee houses became the beating hearts of cities, places where anyone could come to engage in the great conversations of the day. Take Lloyd's Coffee House in London, for example, which started as a place for sailors and merchants to meet and exchange news, quickly spiraled into a caffeine-fueled chaos factory of deal-making and shouting. This humble coffee house eventually grew into Lloyd's of London, one of the world's largest and most influential insurance markets. Or consider Jonathan's Coffee House, another London establishment where stock traders began to meet regularly. This coffee house was the precursor to the London Stock Exchange, the oldest stock exchange in the world. Basically Wall Street, but with more powdered wigs and fewer inside trading scandals. But coffee's reign in England didn't last forever. You see, coffee houses were thriving, but they were also chaotic. Picture a room full of caffeine-fueled merchants, philosophers, and random loud talkers arguing over everything from politics to who had the better wig. It was glorious, but not exactly refined. Then along came tea, smooth, sophisticated, and British enough to charm even the most hard-nosed aristocrats. Tea wasn't just a beverage. It was an entire culture wrapped in ceremony and class. Introduced to England via Portuguese and Dutch traders, it quickly became the drink of choice among the elite, and soon, everyone from the working class to the monarchy was hooked. Tea offered something coffee couldn't: a sense of refinement, ritual, and, let's be honest, less jittery conversation. The British East India Company saw an opportunity, and with a little help from some aggressive marketing and a few questionable colonial endeavors, well, tea became the new favorite. Nothing kills a buzz quite like the threat of royal disapproval. Slowly but surely, coffee gave way to tea, and England's love affair with the leaf was born. The switch wasn't just about taste, it was a full-scale marketing coup. Afternoon tea became the new hotness, complete with delicate pastries, and let's not forget the never-ending debate over whether milk goes first or last. Seriously, people will fight over this. So, as Europe began to shake off the dust of the Dark Ages, coffee was there, quietly doing its work. And hey, it might not have won the battle against tea in England, but it sure as hell won the war for the rest of the world. Coffee. It's the fuel, the myth, the legend. And frankly, without it, society would probably collapse by noon. I'm Jonathan Echeverry, and this was Curious Coffee.